Hey guys, Lonnie, Real Alcoholic. Okay, let's get into chapter 5, how it works. We'll be getting into the third step, and hopefully we'll get through the third step today. Okay, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Once again, re-emphasizing this is a simple program. Really not much to it. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. As a disclaimer right there, number one, do you want what we have? Number two, are you ready to go to any length to get it? If not, maybe there's something else for you. Maybe there's something else to look at. Maybe this program is not the one that you need. There's many ways to recover from alcoholism. But if a person wants what we have and they're willing to go to any length to get it, then they're ready to take certain steps. And hopefully we've done a good enough job by this time, guys, that whoever we're talking to, they're willing. They want what we have. And they're willing to do what we did to get what we had. So at the bottom here, some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. That's what I was talking about earlier. I had to reach a point where I let go of my ideas. The book tells us that the man that has a religious conviction, even though they're good, maybe he's just not able to apply the things he knows so well. Those of us that fought God or the God idea or any of these prejudices that we had, thinking we were all knowing, and our word was the last word. Man, I had to let them ideas go. And so on top page 59, without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Once again, re-emphasizing, summarizing what we've learned already is that no human power can relieve my alcoholism. My sponsor can't do it. The fellowship can't do it. A group of Alcoholics Anonymous can't do it. The clergy couldn't do it. The psychologist couldn't do it. The only thing that relieved my alcoholism is this conscious contact, this companionship, this relationship with God. That's what relieved my alcoholism. And that's what this book is about. To show me, to show you, to show others how to get and how to maintain this conscious contact with our higher power. So page 58 here, we're going to summarize the steps we took. And those are on the walls of almost every AA room. I've heard it said that if you do the steps off the wall of the AA room, you got off the wall recovery. I thought that was funny. Okay, these principles, page 60. We're going to hear a lot in the program about these principles, right? The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Okay, these principles are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We can stop trying to find out what these principles are. Okay, the principles we have set down, what they set down for us, or is a process that we can go through, and that 12-step process are the principles. Okay, so our description of the alcoholic, everything we did previously, from doctor's opinion, there's a solution, Bill's story, more about alcoholism, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, which was chapter 4, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. If we can answer yes to these ABCs, we have completed steps 1 and 2. and we're ready to move forward. So if we can answer yes, now let's get into step 3. Being convinced. We were at step 3. We are now at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and what do we do? Okay, first requirement. We got this first requirement. We have another requirement in Alcoholics Anonymous. The first requirement is that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success, even though our motives were good. See, we kept trying to run life. We kept trying to control life. They give us this example of this actor that wants to run the show. All right, his job is to sweep the floor. That's his. That's what he auditioned for. That's what he got. He's a floor sweeper. But then he starts trying to arrange the lights, telling the light people where to put the lights. He wants to talk to the sound man and tell the sound man what they need to do. He wants to talk to the main characters and let them know that their entrance is all wrong, right? And if everybody would do it the way the floor sweeper thinks it ought to be done, it would be a great play, right? And so in trying to make these arrangements, man, our actor, sometimes we're kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. And here's one thing to point out. You know, we come in the program and we want to be kind. We want to be considerate. We want to be patient. We want to be generous. We want to be modest. Those are some character virtues, right? Some people got those mixed up with the principles, but those are some good virtues that we want to live by. Okay, so here lies the problem, is even when trying to be kind, considerate, patient, generous, loving, tolerant, self-sacrificing, we were still trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Big problem. Number 1, first requirement, we got to stop doing that. We have to quit trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Now, on the other hand, we could be mean, egotistical, selfish, dishonest. We could have a lot of character defects, right? But as with most humans, we're kind of mixed, right? Sometimes we're dishonest. Sometimes we're considerate. Sometimes we're impatient. Sometimes we're patient. But the fact is we are still trying to arrange life to suit us and how we think it ought to go. And that needs to stop. That's the first requirement. So what usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. We might admit that I might be kind of at fault a little bit, but I'm sure other people are more to blame. So am I not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? That's an interesting question. For a long time, I thought I was a good person. Oh yeah, the alcohol made me do this. The drugs made me do this. I was made to do these things because of the alcohol and drugs. No, I quickly learned that even in my early days of drinking, even when the times I was sober, I was a self-seeker, man. I was trying to arrange life, the actors, the scenery, the sound man, the light man. I was trying to arrange all that shit. And the show wasn't coming off very well. And I was angry. I was indignant. I was self-pitying. Okay? And so then I was irritable, restless, and discontent. And they told me early in the doctor's opinion, if I'm irritable, restless, discontent, if I'm angry, if I'm indignant, if I'm self-pitying, I don't have any peace. And for an alcoholic, for me, the only way to find peace is to find it in the bottle. And that's what I did for years upon years upon years upon years upon years. Okay, our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it. Now, this paragraph here on page 62, I wish I would have highlighted, double highlighted, underlined, parentheses, and just made it really stand out. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Now, the reason this is so important, we're going to come back to this later, right before we start a 4-step, right when we get into a 4-step, we're going to come back to this. Our selfishness, our self-centeredness, our egocentric, as we like to call it, okay, is made up of, it's driven by 100 forms. Now, they did not list the 100 forms, okay? We've got fear, self-seeking, self-delusion. We got self-pity. We got pride, envy, greed, lust, anger, sloth, gluttony, greed. We've got critical thinking. We've got impatience, intolerance. We got lying. We got dishonesty. We've got self-delusion. We've got, those are just a few off the top of my head, okay? We got 100 forms that make up selfishness. Selfishness is a blanket term. Pride is selfish. Greed is selfish. Envy is selfish. Self-delusions is selfish. Being full of self-pity, the poor me, that's selfish, right? All these character defects are selfish. They make up this word we call selfishness. So selfishness, self-centeredness, those are some blanket terms, man, that underlying that is driven by 100 forms of, okay? The 100 forms, we've got many, many character defects. Now, when we get into this 4-step, we're not looking at 100 forms. I'm not going to go through 100 forms with people. It wasn't done with me. My sponsor gave me a list of about 20 something, and we dealt with those, man. That was enough, right? And some of those character defects are on these pages right here. If you want to go to this story, he sold himself short. We'll go there later when we get to the 4-step. 12 by 12 lists list the big 7, I call them, the big 7 character defects in the 4-step in the 12 and 12. And so we're going to use those. But the point being made, okay, is that selfishness and self-centeredness is driven by some character defects, man. Driven by our troubles, we think. Let's read this. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, okay? And the alcoholics is an extreme example of self-will run riot. So this trouble I have is arising out of myself. That I have some selfish character defects. I have some selfish tendencies that are causing my problems. Those are the ones that's driving my irritableness, my restlessness, and me being discontent. Those are the things, this driving force, my character defects. That's what I used when I was trying to play God. Okay, I used anger, I used self-pity, I used greed, I used envy, trying to arrange these outside circumstances, trying to arrange this external world the way I thought it should be. That way I would be happy, and of course you would be happy too. Okay, and in trying to make those arrangements, man, I was making some real big mistakes. And it was my character defects that was driving that. So here, many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Once again, this program is not about learning some moral tidbits. It's not some philosophical convictions, right? My religious convictions. Many of us had a lot of those, man. If I could just send somebody a motivational clip of scripture or some Stoic philosophy or a Buddhist quote every day and get them sober, well, shit, I would have never needed these 12 steps. Just send me some motivational clips, man. I'd have been fine. No, that shit never worked for me. I needed a process. I needed some principles to live by that were simple, that were understandable, that I could actually put into everyday application. Okay, so first of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. So playing God, this idea that I know what's best for you, I know what's best at work, I know what's best in my family, I know what's best in my home group, this idea that I'm going to arrange all of those things that work out to suit me and to suit you, I had to quit doing that shit. It did not work. Now, does that mean that we become indifferent and we just teetotal along life and just everybody does what they want to do? Not exactly, man. We can read later that we learn proper use of the will. We read later that we can have the courage to change the things we can. We have a vote. We have a voice. Okay, but my reaction to these things and the how can I put it? My reaction concerning the anger, the indignant, or the self-pity when things didn't go my way, that's no longer there. It's amazing. I can see something wrong with society, and I can do my part to try to make a positive change. But guess what? I don't do it with anger anymore. I'm not indignant about it, and I'm not self-pitying if things don't go my way. And that's a miracle of this program. So this playing God idea, okay, is the fact that what I want to do is I want to learn my part. When I quit being the director, I want to learn my part and do my part only. Because it says, next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God's going to be the director. We're going to let this universal spirit, this creative intelligence, this creator, this father of light, as Bill called it, right? We're going to let God be God. We're going to find our role and we're going to play that role. And that's what we're going to do. So they give us some other conceptions, man, of God, okay? He's the principal. We are his agents. He is the father. We are his children. Most good ideas are simple. And this concept, this conception, this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arc through which we pass to freedom. So they're giving us some more simple conceptions of our higher power. A director, a principal, father, okay? And we are beneath that. We are less than. We are playing our part. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had an employer. That's another conception. That provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Okay, when we sincerely took such a position, what position are we taking? We're taking the position that I'm throwing away my old ideas. What I thought I knew about God, I'm throwing that out the window. All right? We're going to put them in the garage, and maybe a few of those things I can investigate another time and see if I want to keep them. But for right now, what I was doing wasn't working, so I had to throw away some ideas. I had to put them in storage. So we sincerely took such a position. I stopped my prejudice ideas. I stopped my fighting. I stopped my thinking I was right on all these different issues. And I just simply came in willing to take a new approach and willing to get a new relationship and a real relationship, not just educational, but to get a conscious contact with this higher power. This position that I was no longer going to run the show. I was no longer going to try to micromanage. I was no longer going to arrange people, places, and things that would suit me so that I would be happy and you would be happy. I had to take that position. To be an employer was not my job. My job was to be a worker. My job was to learn my job and do that job well. And that's the same in this spiritual realm. And all of us will have different jobs, guys. Some of us are made for this. Some of us can speak well. Some of us don't. Some of us have a knack for this. Some of us don't. Okay, but the most important thing is that from my recovery, I have to find what is my part in this play. What is my job? And when I'm willing to do that, that's all the big book is asking me to do. Is just to become willing to do that. Let's let life unfold the way it needs to unfold. Let me find my particular position in this big, vast world. And what is my job in this? So whenever we did this, all right, here's a little promise right here. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, we became conscious of his presence. We began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. We were reborn. Okay, once again, I bring up this new power thing, okay? We were powerless in step one. We had no power to control our emotions. We had no power to control or resist going to the first drink. Step two, we started sensing some kind of little power when we were willing to take a chance, right? And start maybe investigating this God idea. This step three, man, as we felt new power flow in, once again, we're going to gain a little bit more power. And so more and more as we go through these steps, more and more we're being restored to sanity. We were now at step three. I'm going to say this prayer in a minute. It says we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. And I really like people to take their time because this is not something to be played with, right? We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready. Can I at last abandon myself to the spirit of the universe? Can I quit playing God, quit trying to arrange life, people in this life to suit my needs? Can I be a servant? Can I be an employee? Can I be the sweeper in the play and not the main actor? Can I abandon myself utterly to him? And let's see what happens as we go through the rest of these steps. So we found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we express the idea, this idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though, if honestly and humbly made, an effect. Sometimes a very great one was felt at once. So I'm not one of these guys that's going to force a sponsee to get down on their knees with me and say this prayer. I will if it feels right, if it's moved, if they're willing, if I'm willing, if that seems to be the nature of the way things are going, we might do that. I do a lot of phone work with sponsees. Sometimes we will say this prayer together. Sometimes not, because I always give the individual the option. It is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. So I am not going to sit here and pretend that, I'm not the one who misunderstands. Well, maybe I am. Who am I to know that you need to do it exactly the way I did? Who am I to know that now is your time to experience what I experienced? I don't know. I quit playing God. Okay. I follow the instructions in the book. So if somebody's willing, we can say this prayer together. And this idea of this prayer is what we're looking at. The context of this prayer is what I'm looking at. So let's just take about 15 seconds. Let's have some silence for a little bit. And we're going to say this prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. Namaste. So be it. However you want to end that. But let's quickly review. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Okay, I'm no longer in control. I'm no longer going to determine who or what I'm going to be in the future. It's really that simple. Relieve me of the bondage of self.